Hey guys, I am Beltran. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today's video subject matter is child sex abuse. Part 2. Part 1 will be now added to a playlist if anyone wants to check that out. But more specifically, I am focusing on satanic ritualistic child sex abuse. I need to address the critique that came my way by a YouTube commenter. So just to clarify what that was, the commenter stated that it was incorrect information that I was perpetuating regarding the term sexual orientation, that the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, never said that. In the second paragraph and second sentence, it states the following: the American Psychiatric Association later indicated the word preference was a typographical error and should have read interest. American Psychiatric Association 2013b. The APA clarified their position on pedophilic disorder in response to a statement released by the American Family Association. An article, by the way, I already had in my archives for this subject matter. It is described as a typographical error. These papers by these organizations are worked on for years at a time. It was on the DSM-5, page 698, where this error occurred, for which they have had to backtrack on. There are several articles, which I will link in the description box below. There are malevolent levels to the world of the pederast. Ones I don't wish to know or understand, but I am in the rabbit hole. I don't just want to do a channel on politics. I want to talk about real issues, and this is an issue, and no one wants to talk about it. Hi, here I am. It gets worse, and the worst is the satanic ritualistic abuse. So I do not consider myself someone who has a huge grasp on this topic as others have. So I have a friend who's coming on the channel now. I hope you guys subscribe to her channel because she's fabulous. Her name is Septimus. And Septimus and I discuss a little bit about why she feels called to delve into this topic. And this was an interview that we conducted earlier. So I became introduced to the topic of child sex abuse more specifically recently. Obviously, I've known about child sex abuse for years and years and years. Everyone does, but no one really likes to delve into it because it is so heavy. You and I are not parents, so I suppose it's a little easier for us. What is it in your case that has made you so passionate about this particular issue? Because it's a heavy one.
I don't know, like I'm not a parent, but I have very close relationships with the children that I do work with, and just the prospect that any of them are being trafficked or abused in their domestic environments, that's actually a huge issue. And I believe that society is not actually paying as much attention to this issue as they should be, or addressing the actual scope of the problem, because it's a lot bigger, I think, than people realise. So yeah, that's why I'm an advocate for this.
Well, I think it's very good that you're a voice in this. I felt like when I wanted to undertake the topic, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know where to start. And yours was one of the very first names. So you're definitely, for such a young thing, a very sought after young lady, and you've already developed some fantastic contacts. The particular sex abuse that you actually investigate is it's not just child sex abuse that's domestic. It's demonic, satanic, ritualistic, sacrificial type child abuse. Why that? And how did you get your head in that?
Good question. This is the sort of thing I think that takes years of research to actually uncover. And obviously I'm still young, but I stumbled across this information by coincidence, actually, when I was still studying in high school. And I found these conspiracy websites on the internet, and I started investigating the matter, you know, like Bohemian Grove and these sorts of issues. And I started investigating, I started realizing there's actually quite a lot of factual evidence that underpins some of these accusations and allegations and issue. So I started wondering, why exactly isn't our government cracking down on this issue? And why exactly no one's talking about this? So I got a bit kind And then I delved deeper into this topic, looked at my local law database and found that there are actually cases on satanic ritual abuse. And this made me wonder, okay, so this isn't a problem. There is evidence here. So why aren't people looking at it? So yeah, that's where my passion stems from, the idea that this sort of information has to be divulged and not many people are willing to be an advocate for it.
Well, is part of your rationale behind this that why isn't the government helping because they're in on it?
Possibly. That has occurred to me. I don't have evidence to substantiate that.
No. Yeah.
And, you know, people don't, so it's just speculative at the moment. But you do have to ask questions when there's 17,000 convicted pedophiles here in Australia. There's 90% of these sexual crimes aren't actually, sorry, let me rephrase that. 90% of sexual crimes aren't reported, and 1% of the pedophiles here in Australia are convicted. So you've got 99% of stuff going underreported, and you start wondering why the legal system's so inadequate when it comes to dealing with this issue. And you look at the National Redress Scheme, you look at cases skyrocketing, compensation schemes skyrocketing. So I have issues with some of these compensation schemes because it tends to shush people up, them up, rather than getting their evidence in a courtroom and actually uncovering and investigating the matter like it should be investigated properly. So I think in light of all of that, you kind of start asking questions about why government's not cracking down hard on this issue, but it can spearhead prostitution inquiries, you know, into decriminalising that sort of thing. And that's not a priority. You know, child trafficking is a priority. So, yeah, you just start wondering why that is. And then the only conclusion you can come up with is that there's got to be corruption in government. But I plan on doing post-grad research, hopefully, into the issue of child trafficking and just shedding light on this issue. And also I volunteer for a couple of anti-trafficking campaigns in my state. So, yeah, that's where my interest, I guess, lies. And expertise, if any.
Yeah, no, that's really good. My plan or my hope is to eventually get someone who has been a victim of the child satanic ritualistic abuse, because people who can live to tell that tale, my God, Fiona Barnett is the only name I'm aware of, but you've told me of a few more. So hopefully I can reach out to one of them. So that'd be really interesting. Yeah. How long have you been researching and studying this and volunteering?
So volunteering for anti-trafficking's only been maybe the past year and a half, so very new still. And studying, I'm in my second year of postgrad, so yeah, not very long at all.
Okay, but there's a light, there's a fire there for you, and do you reckon like that's a God-given thing for you? Like, you know, some people have, every single person has their issue. Do you reckon that's the one that you're supposed to try and help?
I feel like, I honestly do feel like it is something I'm incredibly passionate about and can sometimes bash people over the head with this information, which is not great. But yeah, because you don't see a lot of activists doing this sort of research to begin with, and it can be quite dangerous, obviously, and can ruin your reputation, even make it harder to get work. So you don't see a lot of activists in this space, and I just feel like, well, also I'm not that old. So here's the thing. I almost feel like I have the mentality of a kid.
We're the same age.
I honestly feel like because I work so closely with children already and aren't that old myself, so I only just came out of my teenage years a few years ago, I feel like I do have, I'm not kidding, but I feel like I do have a voice, you know, for kids, because I feel mentally like I'm still in that, almost in that headspace still.
What are the statistics for this child sex abuse, ritualistic, satanic element of it in this country? Obviously, in the United States, I mean, we know Hillary Clinton is a part of it, but like in this country, what are the stats? Like, how common is it?
That's a very good question. And I've inquired into this issue. So I've looked at the Australian Institute of Criminology and all of these platforms.
Yes,
they can't give you hard data.
No, they can't. So they never will. They never will. They can't. Yeah.
There, did you cut out?
Hang on, you're frozen. Okay, go. So they can't give you hard data. Was the last thing you said? You're not frozen anymore. Yeah.
No, they can't give you hard data because of the nature of how underground this stuff is. It actually requires you to go into people's houses and infiltrate their domestic spaces in order to actually crack down on this issue with the scope it deserves. And people, like law enforcement, can't just do that. They can't just walk into people's houses without a basis of evidence to do that. So here's part of the problem. A lot of these children don't actually have birth certificates, so they're not even on record. A lot of them are born into families of abuse. So it's very hard to monitor this kind of thing and regulate it, if you can regulate it or call it that, because of the nature of how underground and illicit this activity is. And then the other thing is I've documents under the Freedom of Information Act in order to actually uncover how prevalent this issue is. But because of the pandemic, it's been lagged. So they tell me they'll give me the documents by July, but yeah, they'll come in.
To have an average would just be nice. A speculated average would be nice.
Yeah, and they can't even give you a proper estimate even because of how lacking the data is. So people need to uncover it.
All right, well, thank you so much, and I'll let you go. Thanks for coming on.
Okay, see you, dear. Thank you.
No worries. Bye.
Bye.
Also going by the ASCA, Advocates for Survivors of Child Abuse. It explains exactly the kind of dilemma, drama, toll that it takes on an individual that does in fact suffer through this type of very specific child abuse. So on page 22, psychological consequences for ritual abuse and torture, post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm going to go down to the third sentence of page 22. The traumatized persons may attempt to compensate for their constant state of hyper-alertness by shutting down. Emotions become numb, and many activities previously enjoyed no longer bring happiness or relief. Litz and Kane, 1989. A person with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, has two different extreme modes of living. In one, they are overwhelmed by memories, fear, and anger, and in another, they are fatigued, amnestic, depression, and flat. PTSD has a particular impact on memory. An event may be so traumatic that the brain is unable to process the experience, emotions, and context cognitively. Instead, the knowledge of the trauma is stored separately from the emotions that occurred in that terrifying moment. A traumatized person may recount the event without any feeling at all, or they may have no memory of trauma but be consistently overwhelmed with fear and terror. Trauma is expressed in so many different ways that it can be difficult to diagnose PTSD. And then we have Paul, someone who actually is an Australian satanic ritualistic abuse survivor. I have always suffered with severe terror and a deep sense of guilt and shame that could not be understood by any known cause. These feelings were so intense that initially I became a drug addict and an alcoholic. Eventually I started to self-harm and attempted suicide. Once I started to remember the extreme things we were made to do to innocent kiddies, I was able to understand that we had no choice and to realize why the shame was there and that I was only a child myself and hence not to blame. Healing then became possible. When we need to, the human mind has the ability to float off while our body is still present. A normal example that is daydreaming when we are bored or tired. When we are in a situation and we'd like to be somewhere else, our brains create a mild hypnotic state to provide us with relief. So I hope that sheds a little bit more light onto a really dark subject, something that I can only really bring myself to do like once a month, if that. It's a very difficult topic to discuss. I hope everyone has enjoyed the video subject matter as much as it possibly can be enjoyed. It is a heavy topic, and please share, like, and subscribe this video. The information is of the utmost importance. And please also share, like, and subscribe to Anon 6, my friend Septimus, and I will be sure to get back to you with another video. See you later, guys.